If someone told you that New Jersey has an abandoned village that looks like it belongs in a ghost movie, a fairy house trail hidden in the woods, a mine that glows like another planet, and a UFO house sitting in the middle of an American suburb, your first reaction would probably be, wait, is that actually real? But that is exactly what makes New Jersey far more interesting than it looks on the surface. Because underneath the image of a state full of suburbs, highways, and shore towns, there are still places that feel like they got stuck between different timelines. Some seem to hold on to the shadow of the past, some seem to preserve an old dream of the future, and some feel strange simply because they look so ordinary, yet somehow manage to contain something no one would ever expect. And in this video, we are going to visit 10 towns like that. Places that make New Jersey look less and less normal the closer you get. Number 10, Clinton. Most people would probably look at Clinton and think it is just a beautiful little New Jersey town. And honestly, that first impression makes sense. The place has only about 2,800 people, a river running through it, old buildings, little bridges, and the kind of quiet charm that feels almost too perfect to be real. It looks like the sort of town you would stop in for coffee, take a few pictures, and leave thinking, yeah, that was nice. But Clinton has one problem if you want to call it normal. The prettiest thing in town is also the thing that gives the whole place a strange little shadow. That building is the Red Mill. If you have ever seen pictures of Clinton, you have probably seen it already. It is the image most people connect with the town. Bright red, sitting right by the water, looking almost too postcard perfect. And the funny part is, the mill is not just there to look pretty. It is real town history. Parts of it go back to the early 1800s, and over the years it helped with everything from milling grain to supporting local industry. At one point, it even played a role in powering streetlights in town. So this was never some decorative old building. It was part of the reason Clinton worked. And then somewhere along the way, the stories got darker. Because if you spend enough time reading about the Red Mill, you stop seeing it as just beautiful. You start hearing the other side of it, the ghost stories, the reports of strange figures, the old man in period clothing people claim to see upstairs, the weird sounds, the feeling that maybe something is still hanging around in that building after all these years. Whether you believe any of that or not almost does not matter. The point is, Clinton does, or at least Clinton has learned to live with it. The town leans into that haunted reputation so much that the Red Mill now hosts a famous Haunted Red Mill event every Halloween season. And that is what makes Clinton feel different. Without the mill, it would still be lovely. But with the mill and all the stories wrapped around it, the whole town feels like it is carrying two moods at once. One is calm, historic, and picture perfect. The other feels just a little off, like behind all that beauty, there is something the town never fully explained. Number 9, Ocean City. Most beach towns sell you the same dream. A boardwalk, loud bars, cold drinks, music at night, and that feeling that the rules get a little softer once summer starts. So when people first hear about Ocean City, New Jersey, they probably assume it works the same way. It looks like the kind of place that should. It sits right on the shore, has a famous boardwalk, beautiful beaches, and only about 11,200 full-time residents, which gives it that small-town resort feeling. At first glance, it seems bright, cheerful, and completely familiar, but Ocean City made a very different choice. And that choice is exactly what makes the whole town feel a little unusual. It is a dry town. No alcohol is sold within the city, and public drinking is not allowed. That may not sound shocking at first, but in a beach resort town, it changes more than people think. Because once you take that away, you are not just changing what people drink, you are changing the mood of the place. You are changing who feels comfortable there, what the nights feel like, and what kind of memories the town is trying to create. And the interesting part is, this was not some random rule added later. It goes all the way back to the town's beginning. Ocean City was founded in 1879 when 4 Methodist ministers bought the island to create a Christian seaside resort and camp meeting place. So from the start, this town was built to feel different from the usual shore experience. It was meant to be clean, orderly, family-centered, and a little more restrained than the beach towns around it. In other words, Ocean City did not accidentally become this way. It was designed that way, and over time, that old decision stopped being just a rule and turned into the town's identity. Ocean City still proudly leans into the image of America's greatest family resort, and even its tourism messaging connects that family-friendly reputation to its dry town status. That is what makes this place so different. In most shore towns, the fun comes from letting loose. In Ocean City, the town built its entire personality around not doing that. So the strangeness here is not loud or spooky. It is quieter than that. It is the strange feeling of finding a beach town that became famous not for how wild it gets, but for how carefully it chose not to. Number 8. Smithville. When people first get to Smithville, a lot of them probably have the same reaction. It feels cute right away. The little walkways, the bridges, the water, the old-style buildings, the tiny shops, everything about it makes you feel like you just walked into some peaceful old village that somehow stayed untouched while the rest of the world kept moving. It has that kind of place you want to slow down in energy. You look around and think, yeah, this is nice, this feels old, this feels real. And then you find out that the strange part of Smithville is not that it feels old. It is how intentionally it feels old. That is what makes this place stick with people. Because Smithville is not really the kind of town that simply survived from another era all on its own. A lot of what people love here now was carefully restored, brought together, and shaped into this one very specific experience. The modern version of historic Smithville really began in the 1950s when Fred and Ethel Noyes bought the old Smithville Inn and the land around it, restored it, and started building outward from there. Over time, other historic buildings from around South Jersey were moved in, fixed up, and turned into shops and places to eat. So when you walk through Smithville today, you are not just walking through history. You are walking through a version of history that was rebuilt so people could step inside it. And honestly, that changes the feeling of the whole place. It is no longer just a charming stop with old buildings. It starts to feel more like a town-sized memory. Today, there are more than 60 little shops, places to eat, and free events all year long, so the whole village keeps running on this carefully preserved old-time mood. The past is not sitting quietly in Smithville. It is working. It is hosting festivals. It is selling fudge and gifts. It is giving families a place to wander around and feel like they found something from another time. And that is what makes Smithville feel a little unusual. Not because it is spooky or shocking or hard to look at. It feels unusual because the whole place is built around one idea. What if you could turn nostalgia itself into a town people could visit for the afternoon? And somehow, Smithville actually did it. Number 7. Haddonfield. If you just walked through Haddonfield without knowing anything about it, you would probably think it was one of those polished little towns that has everything under control. Nice downtown, historic buildings, good restaurants, clean sidewalks. It has that calm, well-kept energy that makes a place feel settled, almost a little formal. And with only about 12,700 people, it still feels small enough to be personal. Nothing about it screams strange at first. If anything, it feels a little too put together for that. And then you notice the dinosaur. That is the part that changes everything. Because Haddonfield is not just another pretty New Jersey suburb. It is the place most people connect with Hadrosaurus fulci, the dinosaur discovery that put this town into the history of paleontology. Back in 1858, William Parker Folk helped uncover a major skeleton from a marl pit here, and the scientist Joseph Leidy later described it as Hadrosaurus fulci. What made the find so important was not just that it was a dinosaur, it was one of the first nearly complete dinosaur skeletons ever discovered, and it helped change the way scientists understood these animals. That alone would be enough to make Haddonfield memorable. But the town did not leave the story buried in a museum label somewhere. It brought it right into the middle of everyday life. Today, downtown Haddonfield has a bronze dinosaur statue called Hattie. And the borough itself describes it as a central landmark, so this is not one of those towns where the strange thing happened once and everybody moved on. The dinosaur became part of the town's face. It became part of how Haddonfield introduces itself, and honestly, that is what makes the place feel so unusual. Haddonfield still looks elegant, quiet, and deeply historic, but now it carries this second identity at the same time. It is a town where you can spend the afternoon walking past beautiful storefronts and old houses, while also standing in the shadow of a dinosaur that helped make scientific history. That contrast is what sticks. Most towns get remembered for charm or history. Haddonfield gets remembered for both, plus the fact that somewhere underneath all that polished small-town beauty, the ground once gave up a creature from a completely different world. Number 6, West Windsor Township. If you drove through West Windsor Township without knowing the backstory, you would probably never guess anything unusual ever happened there. It feels like one of those very normal New Jersey suburbs, quiet neighborhoods, parks, ponds, schools, the kind of place people move to because life feels stable there. Even today, with about 29,500 residents, it still gives off that calm, everyday energy. Nothing about it looks like the setting for science fiction. And that is exactly why the story attached to it feels so strange. Because inside West Windsor, there is a place called Grover's Mill. And in 1938, Grover's Mill got pulled into one of the weirdest moments in American media history. That was the night Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater broadcast War of the Worlds on the radio, presenting a fictional Martian invasion in the style of live breaking news. In their version of the story, one of the alien cylinders landed right there in Grover's Mill. So suddenly this tiny, ordinary place was no longer just a spot on a map. For one unforgettable night, it became the place where America imagined the end of the world beginning. And the detail that makes it even better is how random it was. According to the local historical account, writer Howard Koch was adapting the story for New Jersey and basically dropped a pencil onto a map. It landed on Grover's Mill. He liked the sound of the name, and that was enough. That is how a quiet little community got written straight into pop culture history. At the time, West Windsor had only around 2,000 people, so the contrast was almost absurd. A tiny farming area suddenly became nationally famous as the place where Martians supposedly stepped out of the ground. What makes West Windsor work so well for a list like this is that the town itself still feels normal. It did not become a neon sci-fi theme park, it stayed a suburb, but the story never left. Today there is still a War of the Worlds monument near Grover's Mill Pond in Van Ness Park, which means the township has chosen to keep that strange moment alive instead of pretending it never happened. And that is what gives West Windsor its odd little edge. It is not weird in the loud way, it is weird in the best possible small-town way. It is a completely ordinary place that just happens to carry one extraordinary sentence in its history. This is where the Martians landed, or at least where America once believed they did. Number 5. Berkeley Heights. Berkeley Heights really does sound like the kind of place where nothing weird is supposed to happen. It feels like a normal suburb. Quiet roads, regular neighborhoods, the kind of town people move to because life seems simple there. With about 13,300 people, it is not tiny, not remote, not the kind of place you would expect to carry some strange old story in the background. And then you hear there is a place inside it called the Deserted Village. That is the moment the town changes a little in your head, because Deserted Village sounds like something a local kid would whisper about, not something sitting inside a pretty normal New Jersey township. But it is real, and what makes it even stranger is that it is not fake spooky history made up for tourists. It started as a real village. Back in 1845, a businessman named David Felt built a printing operation there and created a small settlement around it. For a while, people actually lived there, worked there, built a life there. It was a functioning little place, not some set piece, waiting to look haunted later. And that is what makes it stick with you. It did not disappear in one dramatic moment. It just slowly stopped being what it was supposed to be. The factory era faded, other uses came and went. At one point, the area even tried on a different life as a summer retreat, but nothing ever fully settled there for good. So now, what is left feels less like ruins and more like a place history forgot to finish erasing. And honestly, that changes Berkeley Heights more than you would think. Without Feltville, it would probably just feel like another nice suburban township. But once you know there is an old village still sitting quietly inside it, the whole place starts to carry a second mood. Not scary exactly, just a little unsettled, a little unfinished. Like behind the normal streets in everyday life, there is this older, quieter version of the place still standing off to the side. That is why Berkeley Heights works so well on a list like this. It is not weird in an obvious way. It is weird because it looks completely ordinary while holding on to a piece of history that feels like it should have vanished a long time ago, but somehow never did. Number 4, Millburn. Millburn is the kind of place that feels very put together the moment you get there. Nice homes, clean streets, good schools, the sort of New Jersey suburb people picture when they think of a place that is comfortable and a little polished. With about 22,800 people, it is not tiny, but it still has that quiet, well-managed feel where everything seems to be in the right place. Nothing about it looks unusual at first. If anything, it feels like the kind of town where surprises are kept to a minimum. And then you go into the woods and find a fairy village. That is the part people do not expect. Hidden along a half-mile stretch of trail in the South Mountain Reservation near Locust Grove, there are tiny fairy houses tucked into tree roots, hollows, and little corners of the forest. Some look like they were built from twigs and stones. Others are so carefully placed that you almost miss them at first. It does not feel like some big attraction trying to scream for your attention. It feels smaller than that, stranger in a quieter way, like the woods are holding onto a secret and only showing it to people who slow down enough to notice. What makes it even better is that this did not begin as some giant official project. According to the South Mountain Conservancy, the fairy houses had been quietly appearing along the trail for more than a decade, mostly created by local artist Therese Ojibwe, who is described as the founder of the fairy trail. So the place did not start as a corporate idea or a themed attraction. It started more like a local act of imagination that slowly grew into something the whole community embraced. And that really changes the feeling of Millburn. Without the fairy trail, it would still be a very nice suburb, but probably just that, nice. With the trail, the town gets this extra layer that most suburbs never have. It starts to feel like there is a small pocket of wonder tucked inside all that order and structure. The Conservancy now helps maintain the trail, curates the houses, and even holds a Fairy Trail Festival Day for families, with more than 500 people attending in past years. So this is not just a cute detail sitting off to the side, it has become part of how the place is experienced. It is not weird in some loud, chaotic way. It is weird because it is such a normal, polished suburb, and yet somehow it still made room for a tiny hidden world in the trees. And honestly, that contrast makes it even harder to forget. Number 3, Ogdensburg. Ogdensburg does not look like the kind of town that should surprise you. It is small with only about 2,300 people, and on the surface it feels like what it has always been, an old mining town in northern New Jersey. The kind of place where you expect history to be practical, hard work, rock, dust, maybe some old industrial stories if you stop long enough to ask. Nothing about it really prepares you for what is hiding underneath. Because buried inside Ogdensburg's story is Sterling Hill Mine, and this is where the town suddenly stops feeling ordinary. From the outside, it is still a former zinc mine, which honestly already sounds interesting enough. The mine's history goes back to around 1739, and over its lifetime it produced more than 11 million tons of zinc ore before eventually closing as the last operating mine in New Jersey. So this place is real industrial history. It is not some attraction somebody invented to make the town feel different. But then you step inside and everything changes. Sterling Hill is famous for something most people would never expect to find in an old mine. Fluorescent minerals. Under ultraviolet light, parts of the rock suddenly glow in bright reds and greens, and the museum's rainbow tunnel is the moment that really gets people. 1 second, it is just a dark mining space. The next, the walls light up in these impossible colors that make the whole place feel less like New Jersey and more like you somehow wandered into another planet. VisitNet even calls it the one and only fluorescent rainbow tunnel, and highlights the Museum of Fluorescence as one of the mine's signature experiences. And the strange thing is, the science only makes it better. The minerals are not glowing on their own. They respond to ultraviolet light, absorbing energy and giving part of it back as visible color. That means the wow factor here is not magic, and it is not folklore either. It is geology doing something so visually wild that it almost feels fake anyway. That is what makes Ogdensburg so memorable. Without Sterling Hill, it would still be a real old mining town with a serious past. But with Sterling Hill, the whole place gets a second identity. It becomes the town where the underground world does not just sit there in silence. It lights up. And once you know that, Ogdensburg stops feeling like just another old industrial stop. It starts feeling like a place that has been hiding color in the dark this whole time. Number 2. Oakland. Oakland does not look like the kind of place that should have a ruined castle hiding in it. It is a pretty normal Bergen County suburb, the kind of town people think of as quiet, residential, and easy to understand. With about 12,900 people, it feels settled, safe, ordinary in the way a lot of New Jersey towns are ordinary. You would not drive through Oakland and think somewhere up in those woods there is a burned-out mansion that looks like the last scene of a Gothic movie. But that is exactly what makes the place so memorable. Because once you get into Ramapo Mountain State Forest, Oakland starts to feel different. That is where you find the ruins of Van Slyke Castle. And even the name feels a little dramatic before you ever see the thing. But the strange part is, it is not just some fake stone tower built to look mysterious. It was a real mansion from the early 1900s, originally known as Foxcroft, built on Fox Hill as part of a wealthy private estate. So what is sitting there now is not fantasy. It is what is left after a very real life fell apart. And honestly, the ruin is almost more powerful because it was once meant to be beautiful. After changing hands a few times and sitting abandoned for years, the mansion was eventually set on fire by vandals in the late 1950s. What remains now is stonework, partial walls, the shell of something that clearly used to mean status and privacy and money, but now just sits there open to the weather. Trees have moved in. The building has been hollowed out, and the whole place gives off that unsettling feeling some ruins have, where you do not need ghost stories because the emptiness is already doing enough. The town itself still feels very normal. It did not become some full-blown haunted destination. It stayed a suburb, but now it is also the place with the castle ruin in the woods, the one hikers can still reach on a legal trail in Ramapo Mountain State Forest. So Oakland ends up carrying two moods at the same time. On the surface, it is calm and familiar, but just off to the side, it is holding on to this burned, crumbling reminder that even the most ordinary-looking towns can keep something dark and cinematic hidden in the trees. Number 1. Willingboro. Willingboro is the kind of place most people would probably describe as normal before they said anything else. It is a suburb, not some tiny hidden village or eerie mountain town. With about 32,500 people, it feels lived in, familiar, and very everyday. The kind of place where you expect schools, parks, neighborhoods, and the usual rhythm of suburban life. Nothing about the name Willingboro really prepares you for the fact that one of its strangest landmarks looks like it should have landed with smoke coming out from underneath it. Because sitting in Willingboro is a Futuro house, and the first time you see one of these, your brain almost does not know where to file it. It looks like a flying saucer, not kind of, not vaguely, it really does. The thing was designed in 1968 by Finnish architect Matti Suurinen, originally as a portable ski chalet, and it was built out of fiberglass reinforced plastic in pieces so it could be transported and assembled pretty easily. That already sounds futuristic enough. But in Willingboro, the story gets even stranger, because this was not just some futuristic house dropped here for fun. The Willingboro Futuro was brought in around 1970 as a space bank for City Federal. So for a while, this flying saucer-looking structure was actually being used as part of a bank branch experiment, which is such a perfectly weird 1970s idea that it almost sounds made up. Like somebody at a board meeting said, what if banking looked like the future, and then nobody stopped them. Later, the structure was donated to the Township and moved to Mill Creek Park around 1975, where it went on to serve real community purposes as office space for park guards, recreation, and the Police Athletic League. And that is why Willingboro works so well as number one. The suburb itself still feels ordinary. It did not become a sci-fi theme park. It stayed a suburb, but now it is also the place with the UFO house, the place holding on to this weird little piece of the moment when America was dreaming hard about the future. And what makes that even better is that the house is still there, even if it has fallen into disrepair and is now considered endangered by preservation groups. So Willingboro is not just the town with something strange in it. It is a place still carrying around an old future that never completely left. Here's something funny about New Jersey. From the outside, a lot of people think they already know what it is. Just suburbs, highways, shore towns, and places you drive past on the way to somewhere else. But once you look closer, the state starts to feel a lot stranger than people expect. Because hidden inside all that normal life are towns with ghost stories, dinosaur history, abandoned villages, glowing mines, fairy trails, and even a house that looks like it came straight out of an old sci-fi dream. And that is really what makes these places unforgettable. They are not strange because they sit outside the real world. They are strange because they still exist right in the middle of it. So now I want to hear from you. Which town on this list surprised you the most, and which one would you actually visit first? Drop it in the comments, and if you know another weird New Jersey town that should have made the list, tell me that too.